As you've heard on Bridge City News, Federal Finance Minister Bill Morneau has resigned, and he says he wants to become the new Secretary General of the OECD. Not like OCD, that's an entirely different thing. This is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But does anyone actually believe him? To talk more about it is one of our regular contributors, Brian Lilley, joining me once again from Toronto. Brian, isn't the resignation about Morneau really about his involvement in the We Charity scandal?
Bizarrely, this is one of the talking points that the Liberals have been putting out. You know, you listen to their official spinners, the people that go on TV and radio and on all the chat shows. They keep bringing up the We scandal as one of the reasons for why Morneau had to leave. And I would have thought that, you know, if you're someone like Scott Reid, one of these people that represents for the party, that you'd be trying to downplay We. You know, why do you keep bringing it up? Oh, no, he wants to go off to lead the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. Yeah, that's what this is about. Wants to be closer to his villa. You know, maybe that sort of line. None of us would believe it, and I don't believe Bill Morneau for a second when he says that it was his decision and he'd been thinking about this for a period of time. You know, what's a period of time? 30 seconds? A minute? It's somewhere along those lines as far as I can tell, but look, if We scandal brings down Bill Morneau as the finance minister of the country because he took a trip where he didn't pay $41,000 worth of the expenses while also still voting for the money that went to We, be it the big contract, the 912 or 544 million, however you want to measure it, or all the contracts that went before it. If that's enough to bring him down, well, guess what, Hal? It's enough to bring down the prime minister because his mother, they spent $479,944 and change to shuttle her around the world, pay her speaking fees, pay her flights, her hotel rooms, her food, all of that. So, you know, if this is enough to bring down Bill Morneau, it's enough to bring down Justin Trudeau. But it's only Bill Morneau who has effectively been fired. He may say he resigned, but he was voluntold to resign, as we used to say in the Army.
Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a minor cabinet shuffle, Brian, and made Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland the new finance minister. Many critics are asking, what does Freeland know about finance, and where does she stand fiscally?
Well, what she knows is that she was a business journalist for years. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, business journalist, she's going to be very business friendly. Not necessarily. Freeland worked for Reuters for many years. She was down in Manhattan for many years, you know, financial capital of the world. She was also a regular guest on MSNBC, which, if your viewers aren't familiar with MSNBC, think of it as the left-wing equivalent of Fox News. It is a very left-wing, left-leaning news outlet. That's fine. They're open and upfront about it, unlike some others. So I have a lot of time for watching MSNBC, quite frankly. But Chrystia Freeland is someone who, that's her milieu, walking and talking and living amongst the Manhattan elites who believe that, well, the wealthy just need to pay more tax. In fact, this is her book. It's called Plutocrats, The Rise of the New Global Super Rich and the Fall of Everyone Else. It normally sits behind me. If you see an open spot in my bookcase right now, that's where that book normally sits. And in this book, she sings the praises of economists like Thomas Piketty and Emmanuel Saez. These are two very left-wing economists from Europe. Saez works out of University of California at Berkeley now. Piketty still advises socialist governments and candidates straight across France. These are guys that believe in tax rates of 70 to 90%. So those are the people that Freeland was looking to for her inspiration in her book. So when you hear the prime minister come out and introduce her as his new finance minister and talk about, you know, taking on the 1%, well, that's essentially, they're going back to her book. This is going to be a major change. The government has telegraphed this. You know, they went to the very liberal-friendly Toronto Star about a week or so before we started hearing about trouble with Morneau. There was a piece in the Star, and I raised this because it's important. They went to a very friendly media outlet and said, we want to use the pandemic to remake the Canadian economy.
Wow.
That is something that they're telegraphing that they're doing right now with all of these changes that they're proposing. And look for universal basic income, a tax on your home, higher taxes for the wealthy. All of these things are going to be part of their program. in the next couple of years as they dare the opposition to vote them down and then run to the polls on it.
Well, we'll see what happens with the Conservatives and their leadership, which is coming up fairly soon. So we'll find out who the leader is going to be, and then we'll see if there's going to be a non-confidence vote. But we'll talk about that in just a moment here. Now, Brian, the PM has prorogued Parliament till the end of September. Did he not say that this was something he promised never to do before he became Prime Minister? What changed?
Well, the Liberals back in 2010 voted for a motion saying that Parliament should not be prorogued for more than 7 days. Look, you can prorogue Parliament one day and come back the next. There's nothing wrong with using the parliamentary procedure of proroguing Parliament. It's a chance to do a reset. It allows you to do another speech from the throne, reset committees. There are a host of reasons for why governments would do this. The bottom line is that the Trudeau Liberals are doing this to shut down the committees, be it the Finance Committee or the Ethics Committee, that are studying the WE scandal, or the committee that the opposition forced on them to review the Canada-China relationship. All of these are embarrassing to the government right now. None of them are generating good headlines. So they want them shut down. It's a 5-week prorogation, but it will be several weeks after Parliament comes back before committees are up and running and holding hearings. So yeah, this is something Justin Trudeau marched against this. I retweeted it on Tuesday. He marched against this idea back in 2010 and tweeted out, "Isn't it a great day for democracy when even the Communist Party is out marching against prorogation?" Well, no, it's not a great day when you're marching with the Communist Party for anything, but prorogation is a valid political tool, but they voted for a motion that said it shouldn't be more than 7 days. And here he is doing 5 weeks just so he can shut down a committee. His absolute, the absolute gall of this is shocking. This is hypocrisy writ large.
Now, at the end of September, we'll have a throne speech and the budget, which is a confidence vote. Brian, is the Trudeau government looking to spark an election this fall? And if so, will the Conservatives and their new leader be ready?
So the Prime Minister said when he was asked about this on Tuesday, no, I'm not looking to start an election. I don't want an election. I do want to point out that just a week ago, he also said that he had full confidence in Bill Morneau. And I think I mentioned at the time that, well, it sounds an awful lot like a hockey general manager just before they fire the coach. I have full confidence in that guy that'll be leaving any minute now. And so here we are a week later, Bill Morneau's gone. In 5 weeks, are we going to be looking at a government that is fighting for an election? I think it's going to depend on how the polls look. If they're able to shut down the WE committees, turn down the temperature on that, bring back some of the support that they've obviously been losing in Quebec. I mean, the Bloc Québécois leader saying he wants an election is a sure sign that the Liberals are falling in Quebec and the Bloc is benefiting. I reported on a poll from Campaign Research last week that showed the Trudeau Liberals losing support. The Conservatives and the NDP weren't rising, but the Liberals were losing support by people turned off by the WE scandal. So if they're able to gain back some of that, they may try and chance it and say, you know what, take us on. Either vote for our budget, vote for our throne speech, or face an election. If the polls look bad for them, well, we might see a more conciliatory tone. It'll all depend. As for the Conservatives being ready, they'll have the money. The question is, will they have the organization in place in terms of campaign managers, wagon masters? There's an awful lot of logistics that go into a campaign that unless you've been on the inside of one or watched it closely, you don't realize all the things that go into it. It's much more than just saying, vote for me.
And I'm just wondering as well, what about the coffers? Can the Liberals really afford another election? Apparently, the Conservatives have money that's overflowing right now.
The Conservatives definitely have the money. The New Democrats do not. The Liberals, they're somewhere in between. They're doing okay in fundraising, but not as well as the Conservatives. So the NDP's broke. That's why they'll be easy to, find something to give them to have them back the government in the throne speech and in the budget. But the Conservatives in the Bloc, they're ready to go. I do find it a bit odd though. All this talk of an election, all this talk about studying the WE scandal, the Liberals have been saying, we can't be doing these things. That's taking away from governing. We need to focus on governing during a pandemic. And then they shut down Parliament for 5 weeks.
Wow. Federal party members have agreed to find a safe way to hold an election if needed. Brian, what will that look like?
So they're talking with Elections Canada to try and come up with a plan on how to basically do a socially distanced election. It will require, you know, more safety measures when you and I go to the polls is going to be the main thing for voters. But then, parties are going to have to determine, well, how much do they go to your door, Hal? Because as much as it may seem antiquated, having a candidate show up at your doorstep is part of the election campaign. So how do they do it? Do they do it with teams of people the way they have in the past, where, on a Tuesday, you've got these 15 volunteers out with the candidate, and on Wednesday, it's another 15 volunteers, and they run ahead and they knock at your door, and if you want to talk to the candidate. So all of these things are being looked at by the parties. Elections Canada is looking at the actual voting procedures and how you do that in a safe manner. That's the easy part. It's everything else that the parties do that's a bit more difficult. And I think that we'll see over the next few weeks whether they're able to come up with a very concrete plan. I mean, it's difficult. We're seeing that in every single province across the country when it comes to back to school plans. But are they able to come up with something that they can all agree to, that they'll adhere to certain rules, that Elections Canada will be able to implement measures at polling stations and allow us to get to the polls? I was going to say Australia. It's New Zealand has just put off their election for another 4 weeks due to resurgence of COVID in that country. And of course, the United States, they've talked about, should we, bounce back the election date? This is something that we've got to deal with.
Brian, the federal Conservatives choose their new leader next weekend. When should we really expect the new leader to be announced, and who is the front runner so far?
Front runners so far, well, there would be two of them, and it will really depend on who shows up where on the first ballot. The two front runners would be Peter MacKay and Erin O'Toole. Now, if Leslyn Lewis shows up in second on the first ballot, well, then all bets are off, and watch for a wild night. All of the results will start to come out just after 6 p.m. Eastern, so that's about 4 p.m. your time in Alberta, on Sunday. Now, I had thought that it was going to be on Saturday. Political parties often try and avoid leadership votes and conventions and such on Sunday, at least while people are in person, because it allows them a day to travel back home. It allows them to, avoid any conflict regarding, church services and such. But in this case, they're just going to start at 6 p.m. Sunday night, Eastern time. They'll start releasing first ballot results. Then they'll go to second ballot, third ballot. It won't go past that. I'm told that we will have a named leader before 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night. As I said, if Peter MacKay and Erin O'Toole are doing well on that first ballot, then Leslyn Lewis doesn't stand a chance. If she's in second place on that first ballot, then we start trying to do calculus, I suppose, trying to remember your grade 12 math and sorting out all the different permutations. Derek Sloan doesn't really have a shot at this point. He has no path to victory that I've been able to ascertain. But Peter MacKay needs to be, if he wants to win, I would say he's got to be above 43, 44% on that first ballot in order to be able to win. Erin O'Toole just needs a strong showing and to be in first or second on that first ballot. And the only way that Leslyn Lewis gets it, as I said earlier, is to show up and surprise everyone by topping one of the big guys on that first ballot.
Now, MacKay's not a current standing MP, so one of the Conservatives would have to give up their seat, and we'd have to see a by-election.
Or he would potentially run in one of the two by-elections that's open in Toronto. We've got Bill Morneau just resigned. His seat is unlikely to go Conservative. It's been a long time since Toronto Centre was held by the Tories. But just north of that, in York Centre, where Michael Levitt, Liberal MP, he took that seat from the Conservatives in 2015. He's left to go head up the Simon Wiesenthal Centre, which is dedicated to Holocaust issues and the like. So he's gone. There, maybe we'll find him go somewhere else if Peter MacKay wins. But you're right, he will need a seat. Or does he go the Jagmeet Singh route and just say, you know what, I don't need to be in Parliament. I'm going to tour the country. Bit more difficult to tour the country in this day and age, though.
Absolutely. We only have about a minute left here, Brian. Let's talk about Governor General Julie Payette. A lot of controversy surrounding her once again. The latest include claims she abused her privileges with a government jet, and she has a kind of a strained relationship right now with the RCMP.
Yeah, and the strained relationship with the RCMP is one that Rita Hall has vehemently denied to me. They've sent me their talking points on this and say it's simply not true, that Governor General Payette, really appreciates the work that the RCMP do. The claims about the jet are a bit odd because they don't always say that she's the one on the plane. And then, of course, we've got the fact that the government summoned for her, and you have to wonder, did they send the jet to go pick her up at her cottage so she could fly back and do the cabinet shuffle and prorogation? Bottom line, Hal, is this is an attempt by the Prime Minister's office to try and shove out the Governor General because it would change the channel from the WE scandal. All of these things that we've been talking about, really about stopping people thinking about the government being in a bad way with WE and getting them talking about just about anything else.
And the fun continues. Political journalist Brian Lilley, thanks for joining me today from Toronto.
Thank you.